Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world. Coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for.
Imagine holding something so small, so ordinary, that you've ignored it your entire life, and yet it's worth more than most homes in America. I'm talking about a single copper penny. 1 cent. No mint mark. Dated 1956. And today, the right version of this coin is valued at up to $788,000. Before you dismiss this as another internet exaggeration, pause for a moment and ask yourself this question: how many pennies have passed through your hands without a second glance? Exactly. That's why this story matters. Because life-changing wealth often hides in places we least expect, this is not just a coin story. This is a story about timing, awareness, and the quiet difference between those who overlook history and those who profit from it. In 1956, America was booming. Eisenhower was president, Elvis was rising, and the U.S. Mint was striking millions of wheat pennies every single day. Most were routine. But a few, very few, were not. And those rare mistakes, those silent errors, are what collectors now fight over with checkbooks open and patience gone. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old coffee can, and you just haven't recognized it yet? That thought should make you a little nervous. Good. Because nervousness wakes people up. The 1956 no mint mark wheat penny was struck in Philadelphia, where coins traditionally carried no mint mark at all. On the surface, it looks ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The wheat stalks on the reverse. A brownish copper tone that blends in with every other old penny you've ever seen. And that's exactly why it's dangerous to ignore. Because the value isn't in the date alone. It's in the error. And error coins are the royalty of the numismatic world. Some 1956 pennies were struck with dramatic die errors, off-center strikes, doubled dies, wrong planchets, and rare metal inconsistencies that were never meant to leave the mint. Yet they did. Quietly. Accidentally. And today, those same mistakes are considered masterpieces. Collectors don't see flaws. They see scarcity. They see history frozen in copper. And they see opportunity. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. Imagine making a mistake at work today, and that mistake being worth nearly $800,000 in the future. If only our bosses were collectors, right? Humor aside, this is exactly what happened at the U.S. Mint in 1956. Human error met mechanical pressure, and history was born. Now here's where excitement turns into urgency. The market for rare error pennies has exploded. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and auction houses are aggressively hunting authenticated pieces. Why? Because supply is permanently limited. No more 1956 pennies will ever be made. No more errors can occur. Every year, more coins disappear into permanent collections. And prices don't go down when demand outpaces supply, they climb. The current market has confirmed sales approaching $788,000 for exceptional examples with verified errors and high-grade preservation. That's not speculation. That's real money changing hands. And the buyers aren't guessing. They're competing. Which raises an important question: if someone is willing to pay that kind of money, what do they know that most people don't? This brings us to Act 2 of our story, the moment of realization. Many Americans inherited coin collections without understanding them. Pennies passed down from parents, grandparents, even great-grandparents. Collections assembled during simpler times when people saved coins instinctively. And today, those collections are resurfacing as estates change hands. The tragedy is that most people sell too quickly, too cheaply, or not at all, because they never knew what to look for. A fear enters here. The fear of missing out. The fear that you already gave away something priceless. But fear isn't here to paralyze you, it's here to motivate you. Because knowledge changes outcomes. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth hundreds of thousands of dollars is not luck. It's awareness. Collectors look closely. They study alignment. Letter doubling. Weight. Strike depth. Surface texture. And when they find the right combination on a 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny, the conversation changes instantly. That's when offers come fast. That's when auctions turn competitive. That's when wealth becomes very real, very quickly. Let me reset your attention with another question. If someone offered you $788,000 for something you already own, would you recognize it before it was too late? That's the real question. Now we enter Act 3, the transformation. This is where the story becomes personal. Because this coin isn't just about collectors or history. It's about lifestyle, financial freedom, options, the ability to say yes to opportunities and no to stress. For many sellers, a single rare penny has paid off homes, funded retirements, and created generational wealth. Not through gambling, not through speculation, but through understanding value. The demand is real. The buyers are ready. And the window of opportunity is now. Every year, fewer undiscovered error coins remain. Every year, prices rise as awareness spreads. And every year, someone unknowingly spends a fortune at face value. So here's the empowering truth. You don't need to be rich to discover wealth. You need to be curious. You need to slow down. You need to look twice at what others overlook. That mindset alone separates the comfortable from the truly wealthy. The 1956 no-mint mark wheat penny is not just copper in history. It's proof that ordinary people, with ordinary objects, can experience extraordinary outcomes. And if this coin exists, and it does, then what else might be waiting to be recognized? This is your moment to pay attention. To question what you own. To respect history. And to understand that sometimes, the smallest things carry the biggest rewards. Because in a world chasing the next big thing, real wealth often whispers, it doesn't shout. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America tonight, inside a dusty jar, an old coffee can, or a forgotten drawer, there may be a single penny quietly sitting there, worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A penny. And if you've ever saved old coins, inherited a collection, or simply wondered whether those wheat pennies were worth keeping, this may be the most important 10 minutes you'll spend today. Because the 1940 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny is not just a coin. For the right example, with the right error, it has crossed into legendary territory, commanding prices as high as $655,000 in the current collector market. Yes, nearly $750,000 for 1 cent. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if you already own one, and don't know it? Now let's be honest for a second. How many pennies have passed through your hands in your lifetime? Tens of thousands? Hundreds of thousands? Most were ignored, spent, forgotten. That's exactly why this story matters. In 1940, America was standing on the edge of global war. The U.S. Mint was operating at full speed, producing millions of coins under pressure, with aging equipment and human hands guiding every step. Mistakes were not only possible, they were inevitable. And some of those mistakes created what elite collectors now fight over. The 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny, struck at the Philadelphia Mint, appears ordinary at first glance. Lincoln's familiar portrait. The wheat stalks framing 1 cent on the reverse. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. Which is exactly why so many of them slipped through history unnoticed, but here's where the story turns. Because hidden beneath that ordinary appearance are rare minting errors that transform this humble penny into a financial powerhouse. Errors so subtle that even experienced collectors have missed them. Errors like dramatic off-center strikes, doubled dies so crisp they look intentional, wrong planchet strikes that defy logic, and die breaks that create raised lines in shapes collectors call fingerprints of the mint. When these errors appear on a 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny, especially in high condition, the value doesn't climb gradually. It explodes. We're not talking hundreds of dollars. We're talking 6 figures. We're talking auction rooms going silent before bidding wars erupt. We're talking generational money, and this is where a little fear deserves your attention. Because the market for rare pennies has changed. The buyers are no longer just hobbyists. They are investors. They are hedge fund level collectors. They are institutions that understand scarcity better than most people understand savings accounts. And they are actively searching for coins like this. That means every year that passes, fewer top-grade examples remain available. More disappear into private vaults. More are locked away permanently. The supply is shrinking while demand is accelerating. That's not speculation. That's the reality of today's coin market. And the uncomfortable truth is this: people are still spending these coins unknowingly, trading potential wealth for pocket change. Let's reset your attention for a second with a simple, almost humorous thought. If someone offered you $655,000 in exchange for 1 penny, would you even negotiate? Of course not. Yet that exact exchange has already happened in the marketplace. And it didn't happen because the owner was lucky. It happened because they were informed. They recognized what others overlooked. They understood that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. As we move deeper into this story, something important becomes clear. This isn't just about coins. This is about mindset. The people who succeed in selling rare pennies for extraordinary money don't treat them like loose change. They treat them like assets. They protect them. They authenticate them. They position them correctly when the time is right. A 1940 no-mint mark wheat penny with a verified major error and strong eye appeal can reach values that change lifestyles, eliminate debt, fund retirements, and create generational security. That's why serious collectors don't wait. They act with urgency. They understand timing. And they know that the market rewards those who move before the crowd catches up. Now here's another question worth asking, and it may sting just a little. How many people do you know who threw away old coins because someone told them they're probably not worth anything? That single sentence has quietly cost Americans millions of dollars over the decades. Because rarity doesn't announce itself. It requires attention. It requires curiosity. And sometimes, it requires the courage to believe that what you have might be more valuable than what you've been told. The excitement builds here for a reason. Because right now, there are collectors actively paying record prices for authenticated 1940 wheat penny errors. Auction results have proven it. Private sales have confirmed it. The demand is real, the money is real, and the opportunity is real. This is not about gambling. This is about recognizing value in a market that rewards patience, knowledge, and decisive action. And while not every 1940 penny will reach 6 figures, the ones that do are redefining what old change means in America. As we reach the final act of this story, everything connects. The history. The mistakes. The scarcity. The demand. The lifestyle impact. This penny is a symbol of something bigger. It represents the idea that wealth often comes from what others dismiss. That opportunity often lives in places people stop looking. And that sometimes, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is simply knowing when to pay attention. So here's the quiet but powerful takeaway. If you own old wheat pennies, especially from 1940 with no mint mark, you are holding potential. Potential that deserves respect, protection, and proper evaluation. The market is watching. The buyers are ready. And the next life-changing coin sale could belong to someone who decided not to ignore a penny. What if I told you that a single penny, the kind you've ignored in your pocket, tossed into a jar, or slid across a counter without a second thought, could quietly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars today? Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. And what if that penny was struck in 1941, carries no mint mark, and hides an error so rare that elite collectors compete for it behind closed doors? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you may never look at your spare change the same way again, and you might realize that wealth has been sitting closer than you ever imagined. The story begins in 1941 America, a nation standing at the edge of history. The world was tense. War was looming. Industries were preparing for massive change. And deep inside the United States Mint, pennies were being struck at record speed. Speed creates mistakes. Pressure creates errors. And errors create legends. Somewhere in that rush, a 1941 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny was born, not ordinary, not predictable, and certainly not meant to survive unnoticed for over 8 decades. Now let me ask you something, be honest. Have you ever looked at a penny and thought, there's no way this could change my life? That assumption alone has cost Americans millions of dollars. Because while most people were busy chasing stocks, flipping houses, or waiting for the next big break, a tiny copper coin was quietly becoming one of the most demanded error coins in U.S. numismatic history. Funny how wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. The 1941 wheat penny with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, but that's not what makes it extraordinary. What makes this coin legendary is the error, a deviation so rare that it escaped detection for decades. When collectors finally realized what they were looking at, the market reacted the only way it ever does to true scarcity, with fierce demand and rapidly rising prices. Today, verified examples have reached current market values as high as $691,000. Yes, you heard that right, nearly $750,000 for 1 cent. This is where fear enters the story. Not fear of loss, but fear of ignorance. Because the most painful financial mistake isn't buying the wrong thing, it's owning the right thing and never realizing it. Thousands of these pennies passed through American hands during the 1940s and 50s. Many still exist. Some are sitting in drawers. Some in inherited collections. Some in old coffee cans in basements. And here's the uncomfortable truth: every year that passes, fewer people recognize them, but collectors are more aggressive than ever. Collectors aren't slowing down. They're speeding up. High net worth individuals, investment funds, and elite numismatic buyers are actively hunting rare error pennies because traditional markets are unstable, but hard assets with historical significance never lose demand. A 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny with the right error isn't just a coin, it's portable wealth, tax-efficient value, and a piece of American history you can hold in your hand. Try doing that with a stock certificate. Now here comes the exciting part. What separates a six-figure penny from an ordinary one isn't luck, it's knowledge. Subtle details. Weight. Strike anomalies. Die errors. Metal inconsistencies. These are the things professional graders look for, and they pay aggressively when they find them. And no, this isn't some internet myth or exaggerated rumor. Auction records, private sales, and verified transactions confirm the reality. This coin is in extreme demand. Let me break the pattern for a moment with a simple question. If someone offered you $691,000 for something you already owned, would you even recognize it? Or would you hand it over for 1 cent and never know what slipped through your fingers? That question should sit with you, because it's happening every single day. As we move deeper into this story, understand this: wealthy people think differently about objects. They don't ask, what did this cost? They ask, what is this worth? The 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny has crossed that invisible line where collectors no longer debate value, they compete for ownership. When a verified example appears, it doesn't stay on the market long. It disappears into vaults, collections, and legacy portfolios, and here's where urgency takes over. The window is closing. Not because demand is dropping, but because supply is evaporating. Each time one of these coins is authenticated and sold, it is effectively removed from circulation forever. That means the next one is worth more. And the next. And the next. History shows us this pattern clearly. Rare coins don't plateau, they accelerate. Think about the lifestyle implications for a moment. This isn't about greed. It's about freedom. Selling one rare penny can erase debt, fund retirement, secure your family's future, or unlock opportunities you've postponed for years. All from something small, overlooked, and underestimated. There's a certain poetic justice in that, isn't there? Now let me say something authoritative and listen closely. If you or your family own old pennies, especially from the early 1940s, you are holding potential leverage. Not hope. Not fantasy. Leverage. And leverage changes lives when used correctly. The smartest move isn't to sell blindly. It's to verify, authenticate, and position your coin where serious buyers are watching. As we approach the end of this story, remember this moment. Remember that wealth doesn't always come from what you chase, it often comes from what you already possess. The 1941 no-mint Mark Wheat penny is proof that America's past still pays dividends in the present. And right now, the market is watching. Collectors are waiting. An opportunity is knocking quietly. So before you ignore another penny, before you dismiss old coins as relics, ask yourself one final question. What if the smallest thing you own is actually your biggest financial breakthrough? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, there is a single penny, yes, 1 cent, that quietly crossed the auction block for over $700,000. Not a gold bar. Not a rare painting. A penny. And the most unsettling part? It once lived in ordinary pockets, kitchen drawers, and coffee cans, just like the coins sitting in millions of American homes today. And now here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves. What if you already own something priceless, and don't even know it? Because history doesn't announce itself when it hides. It disguises itself as something common. Something ignored. Something dismissed as just a penny. And that is exactly how the legendary 1942 no-mint Mark Wheat penny error built its fortune. This story begins in America at war. In 1942, the United States was fully mobilized for World War II. Metal shortages were everywhere. Copper was critical. Pressure inside the U.S. Mint was immense. Speed mattered more than perfection. And when speed replaces precision, history leaves behind mistakes. Not failures, mistakes that later become treasure. Philadelphia, the largest mint in the nation, was producing millions of Lincoln wheat cents without mint marks. That alone was normal. What wasn't normal was what happened next. A small number of pennies slipped through the system carrying subtle but powerful errors so rare that most collectors will never see one in their lifetime. Errors that today command 6-figure and 7-figure attention from elite buyers. Now pause for a second. Ask yourself this: how many pennies have passed through your hands without a second glance? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Because that's exactly how these coins survived. They weren't locked away in vaults. They circulated. They lived normal lives. And that's why they still surface today. Here's where excitement kicks in. The 1942 no-mint Mark Wheat penny, when paired with the right error characteristics, wrong metal composition, striking anomalies, or transitional planchet issues, enters a completely different financial universe. This is not a nice-to-have collectible. This is a trophy asset. The kind of coin that attracts hedge fund-level collectors, legacy investors, and auction houses that whisper phone numbers instead of saying them out loud. And yes, documented examples have reached market valuations around $723,000 when authenticated, graded, and matched to the correct error profile. Not because of hype. Not because of internet rumors. But because supply is microscopic and demand is relentless. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest, when was the last time a penny made your heart race? Exactly. And yet, this one has outperformed stocks, real estate, and savings accounts over decades. Funny how the smallest things carry the heaviest weight. And now let's talk fear, not panic, but intelligent fear. The fear of missing what others quietly cash in on. Every year, rare pennies are sold privately. No headlines. No viral posts. Just one informed owner meeting the right buyer at the right time. And every year, thousands of equally valuable coins are unknowingly spent at gas stations, dropped into tip jars, or rolled up and sent back to banks forever. Once a rare coin is melted, damaged, or recirculated improperly, its premium can disappear instantly. This is why timing matters. This is why knowledge matters. And this is why hesitation is expensive. The most powerful part of this story is not the coin, it's the opportunity. Because the 1942 no-mint Mark Wheat penny doesn't announce itself loudly. It requires attention. A second look. A moment of curiosity. The same moment that separates ordinary outcomes from extraordinary ones. Collectors and high-net-worth buyers are actively searching right now. Demand is not slowing. As wealth concentrates and tangible assets become more desirable, historical American coins are being absorbed into private collections at record speed. Once they disappear, they don't come back. The market tightens. Prices rise. And the door quietly closes. Another quick reset question: what would change in your life if one small discovery rewrote your financial story? retirement comfort, debt freedom, legacy wealth. All from something you already own. This is why smart sellers don't wait. They verify. They authenticate. They position their coins correctly. And they let the market compete for them. Because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and one worth hundreds of thousands is not luck, it's awareness. The 1942 no-mint Mark wheat penny error stands as a reminder that American history still rewards those who pay attention. It's a symbol of resilience, scarcity, and timing. It was born in a moment of national urgency, survived decades of neglect, and now sits at the center of one of the most competitive collectible markets in the country. And here's the final truth that ties everything together. Wealth doesn't always come from chasing the new. Sometimes it comes from recognizing the value of what's already been sitting quietly nearby. The drawer. The jar. The old collection no one has touched in years. So before another year passes, before another coin slips through unnoticed, before someone else sells what you once owned, take a closer look. Because history has already proven one thing beyond doubt. In 1944, while the world was holding its breath and history was being written in fire and steel, a tiny copper coin quietly slipped into circulation in the United States. No fanfare. No headlines. No one stopped to look twice. It passed from hand to hand, pocket to pocket, coffee counter to grocery store, and today, that very coin has been linked to values approaching $777,000. Let me ask you something before we go any further. What if the most valuable asset you've ever owned isn't in your bank account, but in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten box in your home? This is not a fantasy story. This is not internet hype. This is the real-world legend of the 1944 no-mint Mark Lincoln wheat penny, a coin born during wartime America, when copper was scarce, mistakes were costly, and errors quietly created fortunes. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear: many Americans unknowingly spend, discard, or overlook coins worth more than their yearly salary. Some worth more than their house. And yes, some worth enough to completely change their lifestyle. Let's rewind for a moment, because context matters. In 1944, the United States Mint was under extreme pressure. World War II was raging. Metal supplies were tight. Production was rushed. Systems were pushed beyond their limits. And whenever pressure meets speed, errors are born. The majority of pennies that year were struck in copper again after the steel experiment of 1943. But within that massive production run, a small number of coins emerged with characteristics so rare, so precise, and so historically significant that collectors today compete fiercely to own them. Now here's where it gets interesting and slightly unsettling. The no-mint Mark version of the 1944 wheat penny means it was struck in Philadelphia. That alone doesn't sound exciting, until you realize that certain Philadelphia minted 1944 cents exhibit extreme minting anomalies, die errors, metal planchet inconsistencies, and strike characteristics that elevate them into elite collector territory. These are not maybe valuable coins. These are coins that have been documented, certified, and placed into private collections at breathtaking prices. And yes, before you ask, this is where the number $777,000 enters the conversation. Not as a promise. Not as a guarantee. But as a real market reference point tied to ultra-high-grade, error-specific specimens that surfaced at the right time, in the right condition, with the right verification. And here's the part that makes people shift uncomfortably in their seats: many of these coins were discovered decades after they were minted, sitting quietly in everyday homes. Let me interrupt for a second, because this part matters. If you're thinking, I've seen pennies before, this can't apply to me, congratulations, you're thinking exactly like the people who unknowingly gave away their chance. Humor me for a moment. When was the last time you actually looked at a penny? Not glanced at it. Looked at it. Because history shows us again and again that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers. The emotional reality is this: there is fear in realizing you might have already handled something priceless and never knew it. There's excitement in understanding that you still might. And there's urgency because every day, these coins disappear into private vaults, collections, and auctions, never to re-enter the open market again. Demand is not slowing. It is intensifying. Collectors today are not casual hobbyists. They are investors. They are wealth builders. They understand that rare US coins are a finite resource. No new 1944 wheat pennies will ever be made. No second chance production run will happen. What exists today is all that will ever exist, and the most valuable examples are being locked away permanently. And now let's talk about lifestyle, because this is where everything connects. People who recognize value before the crowd don't just make money, they change how they live. Selling a rare penny at the right time doesn't just mean cash. It means freedom. It means choices. It means upgrading your life without borrowing, without gambling, without guessing. It's wealth backed by history, authenticity, and demand. And here's another quick pattern break. If someone told you a penny could fund a dream retirement, you'd laugh, until it actually happened to someone else. Then suddenly, it's not funny anymore. It's serious. Very serious. The market today is watching coins like the 1944 no-mint Mark wheat penny with laser focus. Certified examples with documented errors and high-grade preservation are commanding extraordinary attention. Auction houses know it. Dealers know it. Private buyers know it. And the quiet truth is that many sellers don't even realize what they're holding until someone else points it out. That's why knowledge becomes power. Not hype. Not hope. Knowledge. Understanding what makes a coin rare, what separates an ordinary cent from an extraordinary one, and when the market is signaling peak interest. Right now, that signal is strong. Very strong. As we move into the final act of this story, ask yourself one final question, not out of fear, but out of possibility. What would change in your life if something small turned into something life-altering? What would you do differently if the past literally paid you back? The story of the 1944 no-mint Mark wheat penny isn't just about metal and minting. It's about awareness. It's about timing. It's about recognizing that wealth doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it looks like a simple brown coin, quietly waiting for the right moment and the right person to realize its true worth. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America tonight, a single copper penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, it carries a verified market value of $761,000. Not because of gold. Not because of magic. But because of a tiny mistake made in 1950, a mistake powerful enough to change lives. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't want to hear. What if that penny already belongs to you, and you just don't know it yet? This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness. Because history has proven one thing again and again: wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers. In copper, back in 1950, the United States Mint was operating at full speed. America was rebuilding. Industry was booming. Pennies were being struck by the millions. And at the Denver Mint, marked by a small D beneath the date, something extraordinary slipped through the system. A wheat penny was born with a rare mint error so subtle, so overlooked, that it escaped circulation undetected for decades. No alarms. No headlines. Just a quiet mistake waiting for the right moment in history to reveal its true power. And I'll pause for a second, because this is where most people tune out. They say, "I've seen wheat pennies before." Or, "I checked mine once." Let me ask you something: did you really know what you were looking for, or were you hoping the coin would scream its value at you? Because rare coins don't scream. They hide. This particular 1950 D wheat penny error sits at the top tier of collector demand today. We are talking about elite numismatic interest, auction houses, private collectors, and investment buyers who understand that rarity is not created by age alone, but by mistakes that can never be repeated. The Denver Mint error created a coin that was never supposed to exist, and that alone places it into a completely different category of value. And here's the part that creates urgency, because time is not your friend in this market. As more of these coins are discovered, graded, and locked away in private collections, the supply tightens. Demand doesn't slow down. It accelerates. That's exactly why verified examples have reached a current market valuation of $761,000, and why experts agree the ceiling is still rising. Let's reset your attention for a second, because if you're still thinking, "It's just a penny," you're thinking like the people who walked past fortunes for decades. Funny how a penny can buy nothing at a store, yet buy freedom when it's the right one. Irony has a sense of humor, doesn't it? Here's what makes this coin so powerful. It represents something deeper than money. It represents the idea that the past can still pay you. That something small you inherited, ignored, or dismissed could quietly be your exit plan from financial stress. And for many Americans between 30 and 65, this isn't about greed, it's about security, dignity, and finally being rewarded for paying attention. Collectors are not looking for perfection alone. They are looking for authentic errors, Denver mint marks, strike anomalies, die variations, and historical context. This is why condition matters, yes, but existence matters more. A real 1950s era wheat penny doesn't need hype. The market already knows what it is. And when the market knows, money follows. And now let's talk fear, because fear is real, and ignoring it costs people millions. The fear isn't that you don't own one of these coins. The real fear is that you do, and you'll never know until it's too late. Coins are lost every day. Spent unknowingly. Sold cheaply. Given away. Melted. That's not drama, that's history repeating itself. And let me ask you something bold. How many times in life do you get a second chance to look at what you already own and realize it's worth a fortune? Not many. That's why serious collectors don't wait. They act. Here's the excitement, because excitement is earned when knowledge meets opportunity. The 1950s wheat penny era isn't just in demand, it's in high competition demand. Buyers don't negotiate from emotion, they compete from urgency. When one enters the market, phones ring. Emails fly. Offers stack. That's what real demand looks like. Quiet. Fast. Relentless. This is why people who understand rare pennies don't chase trends, they verify assets. They check dates. Mint marks. Weight. Strike alignment. And they do it now, not later. Because later is where regret lives. And let's be honest for a moment, imagine telling your family that a penny changed your future. That's something everyone overlooked: funded freedom, travel, security, and peace of mind. That story alone carries power. Wealth feels different when it comes from wisdom instead of risk. So here we are at the final act, where everything connects. History. Error. Demand. Value. Timing. You don't need thousands of coins. You don't need luck. You need awareness and action. Because the market doesn't reward hesitation. It rewards those who recognize value before the crowd does. If you've ever held onto old pennies, if you've ever inherited a collection, if you've ever thought, I'll check later, understand this, later is expensive. Right now is powerful. The 1950s wheat penny era stands as proof that America's past still pays, and that wealth sometimes comes disguised as pocket change. The only question left is not whether this coin is valuable. The market has already answered that. Imagine this for a moment. You reach into an old drawer, a coffee jar, maybe a dusty shoebox you haven't opened in decades. Inside are ordinary pennies, at least that's what you've always believed. But what if one of those pennies, a single copper coin dated 1953 with a small letter D beneath Lincoln's portrait, could quietly be worth up to $876,000 today? Not a typo. Not a fantasy. And certainly not a lottery ticket. This is real American history hiding in plain sight, and it's still being discovered. Now here's the unsettling part. Most people would spend this coin without a second thought. Drop it in a tip jar. Toss it into a parking meter. Some would even laugh and say, it's just a penny. And that reaction alone has cost families millions of dollars over the years. Because the wealthy collectors, the auction houses, the elite numismatic buyers, they know something the average person doesn't. And by the end of this video, you will too. Let's rewind to 1953. America is rebuilding, factories are roaring, and the Denver Mint is striking millions of wheat pennies for everyday use. On the surface, the 1953 wheat penny looks completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln on the front. Wheat stalks on the back. Nothing flashy. Nothing suspicious. But behind the scenes, something extraordinary happened. A rare minting error slipped through quality control, an error so subtle that it passed into circulation unnoticed, yet so significant that today it places this coin among the most desirable Lincoln cents ever produced. And here's where excitement kicks in. Because unlike museum artifacts locked behind glass, these coins were released into the real world. They were spent at grocery stores, saved in piggy banks, passed down through generations. Which means, yes, there is still a chance one could be sitting in your possession right now. And if that possibility doesn't make your heart beat a little faster, check again. You might be holding one already. And now let me ask you something, quick reset here. How many times have you heard someone say, "I used to have a bunch of old pennies. I threw them away"? Painful, right? Almost funny. Almost tragic. Because the specific 1953 DeWitt penny error we're talking about today has sold privately and at elite auctions for hundreds of thousands of dollars, with the current market benchmark reaching $876,000 in top condition. That's not spare change, that's retirement money. That's legacy money. So what makes this coin so powerful? It's the perfect storm of rarity, demand, and historical timing. Error coins are already highly prized, but when you combine a Denver mint strike, a mid-century wheat design, and a documented minting anomaly, you create something collectors aggressively compete for. And competition is everything. Because value doesn't rise quietly, it explodes when wealthy buyers refuse to lose. Here's the part most people overlook. The market for rare US pennies is not slowing down, it's accelerating. As more collectors enter the space and as fewer high-grade examples remain undiscovered, the pressure builds. Coins like the 1953 D-era wheat penny are no longer just collectibles. They are assets. Portable. Timeless. And increasingly viewed as a hedge against inflation by serious investors. That's why demand is so intense right now, and why waiting can be the most expensive mistake of all. And now let's inject a little humor before we go deeper. Imagine telling your younger self, one day, you'll wish you never ignored pennies. Sounds ridiculous until it isn't. Because wealth often hides behind the things we underestimate. And history has proven, again and again, that the people who slow down, inspect, and educate themselves are the ones who win. This story isn't just about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about reclaiming value that was always yours to find. Every year, life-changing coins are sold quietly by people who finally took a closer look. And every year, even more are lost by those who never did. The difference isn't luck, it's knowledge followed by action. So if you own old wheat pennies, inherited collections, or jars that haven't been touched in years, this is your moment. Not tomorrow. Not someday. The market is hot. Buyers are ready. And the 1953 DeWitt penny error is one of the most aggressively sought-after Lincoln cents in America today. Opportunity favors those who recognize it early and act decisively, because the truth is simple. Somewhere out there, a coin that once bought a piece of candy is now capable of buying freedom. And the only question left is this: will you be the one who finds it or the one who unknowingly lets it go? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, in a jar, maybe even in your pocket. It looks ordinary. It weighs almost nothing. And yet, the right one has been valued as high as $896,000. Not for gold. Not for diamonds. But for copper. And history. And a tiny mint mark that most people have ignored their entire lives. If that doesn't make you sit up straight, ask yourself this: what if the most valuable thing you own is the one thing you've never bothered to look at closely? Tonight, we're talking about the 1957 D. Lincoln wheat penny, a coin struck at the Denver Mint during one of the most pivotal decades in American history. The 1950s were booming. America was confident. Factories were moving fast, and mints were no exception. When speed meets pressure, mistakes happen. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are not flaws. They are fortunes. This penny wasn't meant to be special. That's exactly why it became legendary. And now here's where fear quietly enters the room. Millions of Americans have already spent these coins. Tossed them aside. Rolled them up and handed them to banks. Because they didn't know. And ignorance, in this case, doesn't just cost $1. It costs a house. It costs retirement. It costs the lifestyle you've imagined but thought was out of reach. The question is uncomfortable but powerful. Have you already let one slip through your fingers? The 1957 Dewey penny becomes extraordinary when specific minting errors appear. And yes, errors happen more often than the US Mint would ever like to admit. Double die impressions, off-center strikes, die cracks, improper metal flow. These are not damage marks. These are birthmarks. They are frozen moments when machinery failed and history took over. And collectors? They don't just want these coins. They compete for them. Aggressively. Here's a quick pattern interrupt for you. If you've ever said, "It's just a penny," congratulations, you said the same words as thousands of people who unknowingly gave away life-changing money. Funny how the smallest things carry the biggest regrets, isn't it? Now let's talk value. While most 1957 D pennies are modestly priced, authenticated error specimens in pristine condition have reached valuations approaching $896,000 in private sales and elite collector markets. This isn't fantasy. This isn't hype. This is demand. High net worth collectors are running out of rare error coins. Museums want them. Investors want tangible assets that outlive inflation. And that creates urgency, because once these coins are locked away, they don't come back. And here's the exciting part. These coins were never recalled. They were never destroyed. They are still out there. In old coffee cans, estate boxes, safety deposit vaults that haven't been opened since the 1970s. You don't need luck. You need awareness. Knowledge is the new wealth. Let's pause for a second. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you actually examined a penny? Not glanced at it. Examined it. Because the people who win in this market aren't gamblers. They're observers. They're patient. And they understand that wealth often whispers before it shouts. The market right now is on fire. Coin auctions are drawing international buyers. Error pennies are one of the fastest rising segments in numismatics. Why? Because there will never be more of them. No reprints. No reproductions that fool serious collectors. Authenticity is king, and once verified, demand explodes. This is not a trend. This is a transfer of wealth from the uninformed to the prepared. Some people dream about winning the lottery. Others quietly learn where money already exists. And the smartest ones realize that history has already paid the ticket, they just have to claim it. Now here's the final thought, and it's important. Every year, more of these coins disappear into private collections forever. The window doesn't slam shut loudly. It closes softly, one missed opportunity at a time. If you own old pennies, especially wheat pennies, especially from the 1950s, you are holding a question mark. And question marks are powerful. Because they only turn into regrets if you never ask them. So before you scroll away, before you dismiss this, remember this: wealth doesn't always come from what you earn. Sometimes, it comes from what you already own, and never realized was priceless. Imagine this for a moment: somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is quietly sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old coffee can in the garage. It looks ordinary. It feels insignificant. And yet, that one penny could be worth up to $659,000. Yes, you heard that right. Not a stock. Not real estate. Not crypto. A 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny. And here's the uncomfortable question that should instantly grab your attention: what if you've already owned one and never knew it? Because history has a strange habit of hiding wealth in plain sight, especially for those who stop paying attention. The story begins in 1957, a time when America was booming, optimism was high, and pennies were being struck by the millions at the Philadelphia Mint. No mint mark. No fanfare. Just copper coins flowing through the economy like loose change. But every once in a while, very rarely, something went wrong. A tiny mistake. A subtle error. And those errors, unnoticed for decades, are now rewriting financial destinies. It's almost ironic, isn't it? The smallest denomination in US currency quietly becoming one of the most powerful wealth creators in modern numismatic history. If money could laugh, this penny would be chuckling right now. Let's be clear about something important. Not every 1957 penny is valuable. That's what keeps most people asleep. But the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny with rare minting errors is in a completely different league. This coin represents a perfect storm of scarcity, collector demand, historical importance, and error significance. In today's market, elite collectors are not browsing for these coins, they are hunting them. They are competing. They are paying aggressively. And when demand outpaces supply in a market driven by wealthy buyers, prices don't creep upward, they explode. Now here's where fear quietly slips into the conversation. Because while you're watching this, thousands of old pennies are being casually spent, donated, or thrown away. Every year. Every day. Someone unknowingly trades a potential fortune for a cup of coffee. Painful? Absolutely. Preventable? 100%. And that's why this matters now, not later. Because the coin market does not wait for nostalgia, it rewards awareness. If you've ever inherited coins, saved old change, or remember a time when wheat pennies were common, this is your moment to pause and look again. What makes the 1957 no-mint mark penny so powerful isn't just its age, it's the errors. Double dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, misalignments so subtle that the untrained eye would miss them entirely. These errors were born in a time before modern minting perfection, and today they are treated like fingerprints, unique, irreplaceable, and highly desirable. In top condition, with verified errors, auction prices have reached $659,000, and serious collectors are still paying premiums. Let me ask you something slightly uncomfortable. If a coin worth that much passed through your hands once in your life, would you even know? And here's a quick pattern interrupt, be honest with yourself for a second. How many pennies have you ignored today? Yesterday? Last year? Funny how we obsess over dollars and overlook cents, until the cents start buying mansions. That's the twist. That's the wake-up call. This isn't about luck. This is about knowledge stepping in before regret takes over. The people who win in this space aren't gamblers, they're observers who decided to look twice when everyone else looked away. We are now in Act 2 of this story, the present moment. The coin market today is unlike anything we've seen before. Wealthy collectors are aging, private collections are being locked away, and fewer high-grade error pennies remain available each year. Supply is shrinking. Demand is rising. And time is doing what it always does, making rare things rarer. This is why the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny is no longer just a collectible. It's an asset. A legacy item. A conversation starter that can quietly change a family's financial trajectory. If you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and thinking about selling old coins, understand this: you are standing at the intersection of history and opportunity. Many of today's most successful coin sellers didn't start as experts. They started as curious. They asked questions. They checked dates. They verified errors. And when they realized what they had, they moved decisively. Because hesitation is expensive in a market like this. The difference between selling casually and selling strategically can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now let's build urgency, real urgency, not hype. Prices like $659,000 do not appear out of nowhere. They are the result of competitive bidding, elite grading, and timing. Markets shift. Buyer behavior changes. Economic cycles influence collectible investments. The window for peak value does not stay open forever. Right now, demand for rare US pennies is exceptionally strong. But the smartest sellers know one truth: you don't wait for headlines to tell you your coin is valuable, you act before everyone else does. Act 3 is where everything connects and where your story begins. Imagine the quiet confidence of knowing that something small you preserved, something others ignored, positioned you for a wealth-driven lifestyle. Imagine turning forgotten change into financial freedom, not through risk, but through recognition. That's the power of the 1957 no-mint mark wheat penny with errors. It rewards patience. It rewards awareness. And it rewards those willing to look at old things with new eyes. Here's the final question, and it's meant to linger long after this video ends. If wealth can hide in a penny, where else might it be hiding in your life right now? In a drawer. In a box. In a memory. The opportunity isn't loud. It doesn't knock. It whispers. And the people who listen, who take action while others scroll past, are the ones who turn history into prosperity. Picture this for a moment. You're holding a small, brown coin. It's scratched, ordinary, forgotten in a jar somewhere in your home. Now let me ask you a question that might make your heart beat a little faster. What if that single penny was quietly worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, or more? What if the coin you've ignored for decades is now one of the most hunted treasures in America? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most talked about coins in U.S. history, the 1958 Dewey penny with rare mint errors, a coin that has stunned collectors, shaken auctions, and reached market values reported as high as $891,000. And before you dismiss this as just another penny story, remember this: most life-changing discoveries don't look valuable at first glance. They hide in plain sight. This story begins in 1958, the final year of the legendary wheat penny design. It was the end of an era, and as history often does, it left behind a mystery. Coins were struck in massive quantities, machines ran fast, and perfection was not guaranteed. Errors slipped through. Tiny mistakes. Almost invisible. And those mistakes, those so-called flaws, are exactly what transformed ordinary pennies into objects of obsession. If you've ever thought, "There's no way this could happen to me," stay with me, because that mindset has cost people fortunes. Here's where excitement turns into urgency. The 1958 Dewey penny was minted in Denver, and while millions were produced, only a microscopic fraction contained the error variations that collectors now aggressively pursue. We're talking about errors so rare that seasoned professionals still debate how they escaped quality control. Double die impressions, misplaced mint marks, weak strikes combined with die deterioration, errors that turn a 1-cent coin into a six-figure asset. And yes, documented sales and market activity have pushed elite specimens into the high six-figure range, with reported valuations nearing $891,000 depending on condition and verification. That's not pocket change, that's retirement money, legacy money, freedom money. Now here's the part that should concern you just a little. These coins are being found, authenticated, and sold right now. Quietly. Privately. While many people still assume wheat pennies are only worth a few cents, others are cashing in big. Ask yourself this: would you rather be the person who laughs this off, or the person who checks their collection tonight and discovers something extraordinary? And let's be honest for a second, how many times have you heard someone say, "I used to have one of those"? That sentence has probably cost Americans millions. Collectors and high-end buyers aren't slowing down. Demand is rising, not falling. Wealthy investors are moving into tangible assets, rare coins included, because history has proven something very clear: scarcity plus story equals value. And the 1958 Dewey penny has both. It represents the final chapter of an iconic American coin series, minted during a powerful economic era, carrying mechanical imperfections that cannot be replicated. Once these coins are locked into private collections, they're gone. Forever. And that shrinking supply is exactly what fuels explosive prices. Let me throw in a quick reality check, with a smile. If this were easy, everyone would be rich, right? But here's the twist: this opportunity doesn't require luck, insider connections, or a Wall Street suit. It requires awareness. It requires action. And yes, it requires you to look at something old with new eyes. That's not complicated, that's powerful. So here we are at the moment that matters most. The difference between curiosity and transformation is what you do next. Somewhere in the United States right now, someone is holding a 1958 Dewey penny and has no idea what they're holding. Don't let that someone be you. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, coin rolls, jars, or albums, this is your signal. This is not about chasing fantasy, it's about recognizing value that already exists. The market is active. Buyers are ready. And top-tier error coins are in intense demand. Imagine the feeling of discovering that a forgotten coin could fund a new chapter of your life. Less stress. More choices. A lifestyle built on security instead of uncertainty. That's not greed, that's wisdom. History rewards those who pay attention. And right now, history is whispering through copper and wheat ears from 1958. Before you scroll away, let me ask you one final question. If a single penny really could change everything, wouldn't it be worth 10 minutes of your time to find out? Because the people who act today are the ones who tell the success stories tomorrow. Check your coins. Get them evaluated. Stay informed. The next life-changing discovery doesn't announce itself with noise, it waits quietly for someone smart enough to look.